Hello and you're very welcome back to the Public Eye Business Podcast brought to you by Granite Exchange. I'm your host, Sarah Travers, and throughout this series I'll be speaking with local entrepreneurs and business owners to learn more about how their companies have come to be, to gain insight into their growth and find out how they continue to innovate. So wherever you get your podcasts from, remember to keep an eye out for all new episodes and subscribe to stay up to date. Well, today in the studio, I'm joined by Maeve Finnegan, Managing Director of Mitso Marketing. How are you today, Maeve?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm brilliant, and you're looking fabulous. So before we begin, Maeve, I always give people a little bit of a background to you and your business. So Maeve is an MCIM accredited and a certified intertrade consultant with a wealth of experience delivering cross-border brand and digital projects. She's a member of Newry Chamber Council and regularly speaks at events, including the Small Business Conference for Newry Chamber of Commerce and the Federation of Small Businesses. Now, in 2016, Maeve founded Mitso, an award-winning brand and digital agency with clients in Ireland, the UK and Bermuda, but more on that later. Since then, the agency has grown to a team of 5 with clients including Quilca Boardwalk, or the Stairway to Heaven, Obelisk, Pure Pharmacy and Suki Tea, who've also been in this studio. Maeve is also a part-time lecturer in Dundalk Institute of Technology and has also guest lectured at Queen's University in Belfast. Now, a little bit of information for you. Outside of the office, Maeve previously toured the world for 4 years as a professional dancer with Riverdance the Show, and she's also a very busy mum of 3. Well, what an introduction, Maeve, and what a life you have had. I know you now have 3 little ones, 4, 2 and 7 months. And has that been your biggest challenge to date?
Absolutely. Yeah. The work-life balance is certainly hard to achieve.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's go back a bit again and just tell us a bit about where you're from and how you get into doing what you do.
Yeah. So I'm originally from Jonesborough, a little village in South Armagh. I grew up the youngest of 4 siblings, well, 3 siblings, including myself. I came from a very hard-working family. My mum was a nurse. My dad ran his own kitchen company. My siblings were very, very successful. We had a very sort of strong work ethic in the house. We had a fantastic childhood, and I very much sort of looked up to my brothers and sisters as I grew up. I went to St Paul's High School in Bestbrook. I absolutely loved it. I thrived there, and thanks to a very good sort of careers teacher at the time, Miss Black, she advised me to do, I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do, and she advised me to look into a course called Communications, Advertising and Marketing in Jordanstown. So I did that, and I remember specifically her pointing it out in the prospectus, and I just said, that's it, that's what I'm doing. I ended up then studying that in University of Ulster in Jordanstown, and I had a fantastic placement year in a company called Poster Management Limited, which is an outdoor advertising firm in Belfast, and I had a brilliant year there, and I absolutely loved it, and I thrived there. And I went back to study final year, and subsequently as I left university, I remember having a bit of a panic attack with my mum and said, I really still don't really know what I want to do out of this. And I think not so much from the point of view of, I was totally clueless, but there were so many avenues and I didn't know where to take it. So she said, look, Maeve, just relax, go and do your job in the doctor's surgery for the summer and just, take your time. So that's exactly what I did. And I ended up getting a phone call from an agency called Ad House in Belfast to offer me a job. I had worked with them in my placement year. And subsequently, a couple of days later, as life goes, I got a phone call from Riverdance to join the tour that December to China.
So, oh my word. So all of these opportunities were suddenly all there.
Yeah. And I had been, a dancer since I was 3. All my brothers and sisters danced. My mum danced. She said I used to be a pain in the backside because I would be dancing and I'd be practicing and like when I was 3 years of age at all the feshes. So I was pretty obsessed with it, and it kind of went hand in hand with everything I did at school or anything I was doing, there was always dancing by my
But
side.
how did that opportunity actually come about then? How did they know about you?
Well, so I suppose my aim at the time was always to win in All Ireland. That's what I was working towards my entire life. I won 2 Ulster championships, under 16 and senior ladies, or under 18 actually, and senior leaders. So I was a kind of a late bloomer, and I left and I went to university. And actually, when I went to New York, one of the summers out of university, just for a summer holiday, I got picked to audition. So you had to send in like an audition tape and pictures of yourself and all this really cringy stuff. And what they did at the time was a group audition, so you had to go with a group and audition on stage. But because I was away, they offered me the chance to do my own audition after that, because I'd missed the date. But what ended up happening is I actually had to do my own audition in front of Brendan DeGalley, who was principal dancer at the time, on my own, on the stage in the Gaiety Theatre in Dublin. So it was
How daunting was that?
Big time daunting. But luckily enough then I was really, really lucky, because they obviously liked what they saw, and I was offered to come and what they call train in. So training in essentially consists of 5 days of pure hell where they put you through the rigour, and they, you know, make you do all the steps and learn everything and learn the show essentially. But I'll never forget, it was absolutely unbelievable. I enjoyed every minute of it, but it was just extremely hard. And I'll never forget coming up O'Connell Street, and it was lashing rain, and I was sweating and I was bleeding, and you know my heels had been torn off me, and it was just tough. I think it was just kind of a test, you know, for stamina.
Crying as well?
I was crying, yeah. And I just said, what am I doing? You know, am I cut out for this? And then again, then about a year later, I was offered then the position to go to China on my first tour.
So you'd heard nothing between O'Connell Street in tears with the blood to this offer?
Yeah, because in actual fact, that's actually quite quick. So a lot of people, they could wait years on a position, and it's just sometimes as people leave the show or new people join, or they have different requirements. Say, for example, they need taller people or smaller people, or, you know, just what they're sort of seeking at the time.
Because it's that kind of group look, isn't it? Everybody has to be sort of the same, consistent.
Yeah.
Gosh, isn't that so interesting?
I know, yeah.
So I take it your mum didn't say, oh, no, pick the proper job. She said, the dancer in her said, go for it.
Yeah, well, my brother actually had joined, he had been in the show for many years before that.
Oh, I see.
But he had actually just been a part-time member. So he was a part of what they call a flying squad. So essentially they would phone him up, and he was in the show at the time when it was really, really big. And I'm not just saying.
So what year would this have been then?
Oh my God. It was back in the early 2000s. He was in it anyway, or even before that actually.
Right.
But he went to DCU and he did actory, but they could phone him sort of on a weekend and they'd say, you know, do you want to go to China next week, or do you want to, you know, whatever, go to all over Europe? And he would just take time out of uni or catch up or whatever and do it. So I had that experience, and I think
so amazing.
Yeah, and then Mum was just like, of course, like go and do it. And at the time I thought it was just a temporary thing. It was just for a couple of months. I didn't think that it would turn into like my full-time career. And as I went to the show, I did sort of dip in and out of jobs, obviously, and you know, in gaps between tours as well. So I kept my hand in to what I knew would be my long-term career in comms.
So you actually spent 4 years touring the world. Where did you go? What did you see? And what was it actually like? Did you still cry and have bleeding heels, or did it get easier?
So my first tour was incredible. I will never forget it. And they were the most transformative years of my life, because I soon and very quickly realised that there was a life outside of sitting 9 to 5 in a job that suited my creativity. It's for a lot of people. It just wasn't necessarily for me. And I soon realised that you can make money and you can earn a keep doing something that's a wee bit more dynamic and flexible. And you know, I'd sort of met a lot of dancers or stage managers or musicians, or you know, really, really interesting, top sort of really intelligent people. And I thought, you know, it's okay if I decide then to go back and do something out of the ordinary, and I don't become a lawyer, don't become a teacher, whatever, you know, like those sort of vocational careers, and not to have that pressure. So I think that's one of the things I very quickly learned.
So liberating as well, and as well
Absolutely.
coming from, you know, a small place in Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
Kind of just post the Troubles, you probably grew up and all of that was going on. You suddenly were free.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was in the midst of the most wonderful, amazing dancers you'll ever meet, and really disciplined people. And
were they all from the island of Ireland, or
no, all over? So America, Australia, the UK, the island of Ireland. And you know, I also was catapulted, I suppose, from Cleavey Hall, where I practiced all my life, to now being with world champions and people who really took this seriously. And I'm not saying, you know, that we didn't take it seriously, but it was very disciplined, very professional. So when I went on my first tour to China, we did like 13 cities in 3.5 months, which was actually quite a small tour in comparison to then. Subsequently, I did tours of America and Canada, and there were like 83 cities in 4.5 months.
Oh my word.
We went to Inner Mongolia. We performed for the Kazakhstani president's 60th birthday. Did you?
We performed in the desert with Mariah Carey in Egypt. We were in Dubai. We were, God, you name it. I seen it. So, and what, you know, that river dance phenomenon obviously started out with Michael Flatley and Jean Butler and all of those things. But what was it about river dance that just everybody in the world loved it and they just wanted you to come and dance for them? Yeah. Do you mean sort of what do you think the appeal to river dance is? I think if you go, I'm not sure if you've ever seen it, have you? Or? Oh yes, well, not, do you know what? I haven't seen it live. Yeah, I've seen it on the TV. Yeah, when you see it live, there's just something about it. It's very emotional, actually, when you watch it. There's a lot of pride that you feel when you're watching it. It's very in tune with the history of Ireland. There's also, what people don't realise, other cultures in it. So there's Russian dancers, there's Spanish dancers, there's American tappers. So it's a mix of everything, and I think the music is absolutely beautiful, and that's a big appeal as well. But for me, I suppose, you know, it was something that I just absolutely loved doing and performing. And I actually didn't realise there's a big difference between competing and performing. Yes. And when we competed, you know, you were very straight arms, very straight laced, and, you know, everything was, whereas when I even tried to do some of the arm movements, it took me like at least 2 months to learn some of them, and to really learn how to perform. Was a big difference for me. And that discipline and everyone together. I mean, how hard was that? Did you get good days and off days? Yeah, absolutely. So we had actually numbers on the floor, and they would record the show every single night. And you know, if they would know if you were off your number or off your lines, and everything was precision orientated. And I think I've carried that through my career. That sort of high standard and that discipline was amazing for me, and everybody wanted to do their very best on that stage every night. There was no one who was, you know, maybe taking it a step down. You had to give your best and your all. But there were days that I remember, particularly on those long American Canadian tours, where you would wake up and your feet would just be in agony, or your body, but we were really well looked after. Like, we had a masseuse, we had physios, we had time off, you know, downtime. But yeah, no, it was intense.
This podcast is sponsored by Granite Legal Services, a niche business law practice located in the heart of Newry City. We provide legal advice and representation to individuals and companies alike across a wide range of industries on an assortment of legal matters which can affect a business, such as corporate, commercial, employment, dispute resolution, regulatory and compliance. We focus on providing legally sound, commercial and practical advice to our clients. To get in touch, contact 028 30 262200 or visit www.granitelegalservices.co.uk to find out more about the firm and our services.
And as you say, you've carried, you know, those high standards with you, but they take their toll too, I'm sure. And, you know, can you really always give your best 100% every day?
Yeah, well, I think that's sometimes what you learn. I think what I actually did learn also, so maintaining those high standards was really important, but I actually learned that rest is also really important. So that, you know, when you take a step back or you have your rest days, it's a wee bit like exercise. You know, there's no point in exercising 6-7 days a week. It doesn't make sense. You need to take a step back and you need to sort of rest, and that's what I do try and do. And particularly having 3 kids so close together, what I've learned is that it's okay to step back, and it's okay to let your team do what they do, and to trust your team, and to be able to delegate. And that's what I've learned as well, you know, very much so, that as long as you work really, really hard, but you set out those times and those hours for rest and just getting back to sort of base again.
And you can switch off.
Not really.
See, that's the thing. You have to nearly unlearn all of those behaviours. So I'm going to move on from Riverdance in just a second, but from that time, what was the highlight?
The highlight, I actually, would you believe, I actually approached the executive producer, and there was a number in the show at the time called Trading Taps, and it was synonymously just performed by male dancers in the show. So there were 3 male Irish dancers and 2 male tappers, and it was about the sort of like, it was nearly like a dance-off between Irish dancing and tap dancing. And I just sort of simply asked the question, you know, have you ever considered a female doing this? And you know, I love the music and I love the number and the steps and everything, and it doesn't have to be me. I'm not saying it has to be me, but just have a female do it, or you know, be involved. And he said, do you know, I've never actually thought about it. I'm going to go away and think about that. So I think a couple of weeks later I got an email to say, look, we're going to try you doing it, and I already knew the steps, so I was just kind of thrown in, and you
got that gig.
Yeah, and
the first woman.
Yeah, I think it was the first Irish female anyway to do that, but it was something I'm very, very proud of.
I'm sure you are. Brilliant. Go Maeve. Right then, so what happened after 4 years?
So yeah, as I said, I did, you know, I just wasn't a dancer full time. So, and I always had that vision in my head that at the end of the day, I only thought I'd be away on tour for a couple of months. I didn't think it would last that long. So I always had a vision for what I wanted to do and what I wanted my career to be was in digital and comms. So I did work in Ad House. I went back to work for PML for a while. I worked in Colin Glen. I also had a placement in Croke Park in Dublin. So I really kept my feet in the door with a lot of that. And once I left the show, I met my now husband, and then just before my final tour. So I'd made the decision, I'm kind of done with this. And I went to China and come back, and we moved to Liverpool quite shortly after. I worked for a really big electricity firm over there, and I had a ball, lived in Liverpool for a couple of years, and then we decided we wanted to move home. So we had a long discussion about, you know, what we wanted to do for our future, where do we want to live, and what our plans were. And it was funny because we had a long conversation about setting up on our own, both of us. Niall, my husband, wanted to do it, and I also had an ambition to do it. But again, hadn't a clue. Where do I start?
He's in construction.
And he's in construction, yeah. So he ended up setting up his own construction firm, and at the time I thought, you know, I'm going to set out as a loan consultant, and I'll offer support in digital marketing and social and content management. So I met a guy that we knew at the time who had his own recycling machinery firm, and he was after somebody to look after his social media. I also did a work with the construction firm that Niall was working for at the time, and it literally just organically grew from there. He bought me like an iPad for my 30th, and I literally worked on the iPad for like 4 years. No computer, no computer, no office. I actually was looking back last night. I wrote an article in 2017 about the fact that people sort of look down on anyone working from home, which is so ironic.
Gosh.
Because I
look at us all now.
Yeah, and I worked from home for a number of years. I worked in coffee shops, you name it, I worked there. And it was very, very lonely.
Oh, was it? You didn't quite like that?
I did, because I knew that that's what it took to really sort of figure out where I was going, try and get business, to not have lots of overheads that I didn't need. So there was no point in me renting an office space when I wasn't really sure, you know, where this was going to go or where I was going to end up with it. So I did at the time said, you know, I don't mind working from home, and I love the flexibility of it as well. But a lot of people did say to me at the time, you know, what are you doing? You know, what is it you're doing?
More that they didn't understand what you were doing?
Yeah, probably they didn't understand, and probably, God love my mum and dad, probably didn't know if there was much security in what I was doing as well at the time. So,
and how did Mitso begin?
Yeah, so as I said, I literally started off as a loan consultant. I gradually grew sort of a client base, very, very small businesses. I had nobody else working with me, and I quickly realised that, you know, working as a loan consultant was lonely. So I became Intertrade approved consultant. I signed up to become a part-time lecturer. I built a network of freelancers because I couldn't do everything on my own. And very, very slowly built up a client base across Ireland and the UK. I had a really good friend approach me to work on an esports project across Ireland and the UK in multiple different venues, and it was very much about communications, PR, event management. And at the time I was pregnant with my first child, and I knew I needed support, so I brought on my first full-time member of staff. Who, God love her, again, we had no office at the time, so again we were working from home.
She's still with you?
She's not actually. She left to go to Australia.
Oh.
Yeah. So she's away in Australia, but Roisin, and we had a ball because it was a fantastic project, but it opened a couple of doors for us as well. We then started to rent like a flexi space in Newry. I had another girl then join the team as a placement student who's still with me today, called Ciara Boylan, and we worked in the most random, wonderful projects. But I kind of struggled. Well, I actually struggled quite a lot at that time because I had just had my first child, as I say, trying to manage childcare and, you know, juggle it all. It was really, really difficult. And and how did you manage? How did you work out, how's this going to work for me and my family, and make sure that I can be the boss that I need to be as well? I was just clueless. Yeah, I really was, and I just want to be honest.
Isn't
about that.
Everyone?
Yeah,
Isn't everyone really?
yeah. I want to be honest because I think there's misconceptions about, you know, running your own business and you're fantastic and you have this team and all the rest. And a lot of the time, at the beginning, in particular, I had no idea what I was doing in terms of where I was going to take this business, what I was going to do with it.
So strategy and vision.
Strategy, vision, plan, you know, and I tried my best. And at the time, I suppose that's all you can do. And that's all I continue to do every day. But, you know, trying to sort of balance the childcare and business and make time for everything was difficult. But over time, I got into my groove. And then we moved into my dad's office. We rented a space there. And since then, I've taken on 2 more employees. So there's a team of 5 of us now.
So how do you think things have changed now? Have you sussed out how to work it?
Because
you just added a few more babies to the mix as well.
I think I have. I think to be honest with you, I haven't solely. My team are amazing. I have fantastic childcare. I have fantastic family around me. So I'm incredibly lucky in that way. But I think I've learned how to have the balance between the two, in the fact that when I come home in the evenings, that's family time. Whereas before I would have worked all hours of the night. And I suppose that's why I'm a wee bit obsessed now with efficiency. Whatever time I do have in work, I use it wisely.
And the working smarter. It's longer. And it's amazing what you can achieve.
Oh, unbelievable.
Yeah. So have you any tips for us? Any things that work really well?
What I've learnt is processes and procedures. So when we tend to take on a new client, for example, that, you know, it's not full of procedural things at the beginning, and you try to quickly onboard a client, get a schedule and timeline in place that works for everyone. Sometimes we'll have to move projects around to make time for things. Sometimes things come in last minute, but we have a Monday morning meeting every week, and we'll all get together and we'll understand priorities and project schedules and things like that. What that allows me to then do is step back and let the team work away. So I had a good conversation with somebody else, a business owner, who said, you know, do you have dealings with clients on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis? And I said no, because I trust the team. They all have their clients and their projects, and everybody gets on with their own jobs. Now, that's not to say I don't speak to clients, I do.
You've really grown, you've sussed it out, you're working smarter, you're more efficient. So tell us about the different services that Mitso offers.
So we would describe ourselves as a brand and digital agency. And what that means is that we create someone's story, we tell the story, and then we sell it through a series of services. So we take on somebody at the very, very beginning, and what we do is develop their brand identity, which is a whole process in itself. We do a lot of research, focus groups, data analysis. We get a lot of people, sort of senior people, and even further than that, into the room, discuss it and really pull it apart and put it back together. We then create the brand identity. So we have an in-house designer who does all that work and key messaging and values. Once all of that is done, we then, as a result of that, take it across all collateral. So that could be anything from a brochure to a website to vehicle livery to you name it. Anywhere where you see the brand, we would do all that work. And then, as I say, we create the website and manage social media and their assets and channels. So it kind of comes across a series of paid, owned and earned channels. And once all that brilliant work is done and they've got all the core brand and their digital channels all set up and managed, we then what we call we like to call it activate or implement and sell the story. So what that means is we get a really good understanding of who the customer is, and we then push it out and promote the brand and products and services. So that could be anything from digital advertising to email to social, PR, basically what fits, I suppose, that particular brand and the customers that we're trying to reach. So it's a full service model and a holistic approach from start to finish.
Just talk us through some of the clients that you've got on the books right now. I mentioned a few in the introduction, some really lovely projects and, some really lovely clients to be working with.
Yeah, so we just recently took on Pure Pharmacy there in the south. So that's 22 stores I think they have. And the CEO has just been shortlisted for EY Entrepreneur of the Year.
Brilliant.
So we helped with a lot of the background work for that with Dave, the owner.
So how did that come about?
It was a referral actually, and he again asked us to come on board to manage the social media, which then turned into no, we're not doing that, as in we wanted to do like a full audit and strategy and plan for him. And because we kind of discovered that he was spending money in areas and he didn't really understand was there return on investment. So that's a lot of the stuff that we would do is the background plan and strategy. And once we have that, we quickly identified that he needed a new website. So that's what we're working on at the moment. And
that's the thing, because a lot of people think they get now that they have to be marketing and they have to be digital. For a long time, that was a difficult ask for a lot of CEOs, but they get it. But then they go, here's the money, now make it happen. So you go in there and you actually step back and you do the whole audit. So talk us through that process then. Yeah,
so we very regularly have clients who come at different stages in the journey, I suppose. So what we say is our services start from the start in terms of the core brand, through to digital and your assets, through to activating your campaigns. So we create the story, we tell the story, and then we sell the story. And that's kind of how we see it. So somebody will come to us at various stages, as I say, and every single time someone approaches us, we would say, let's take a step back. Do you actually know, and when's the last time that you assess what's going on, where you're spending money, what the return is, what's happening, who your customers are? And I would say 9 times out of 10, people don't really do that work, or they don't have oversight of what's actually happening.
So that's all the analytics?
Analytics, and even just sort of really getting to grips with who their customers are.
Oh, right.
And really understanding them, because customers change every day.
And how do you do that? What do you use then? Is it all about the data?
Yeah, so a lot of it's data, but also we do research. So we will be quite adamant to do like focus groups and surveys and things like that. Even in the case of the pharmacy there, we didn't really have access to a lot of data. So then we said, can we do a bit of an internal survey, because your pharmacists and the people who work on the shop floor and your stores know your customers better than anybody. We will not be able to provide that insight, but you guys will. So we did an internal survey with all of the team, and some of the results that you get is fantastic. And sometimes it opens a can of worms, but we strongly believe that that's a good can of worms to open.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it improves business
100%, because if you don't know your customers and you don't know your business and you don't know your staff or what's happening on the ground, then how can you then go out to promote or sell your story?
So as well as Pure Pharmacy, you've worked with other big brands that many of us will know as well.
Yes, so we operate across a number of different industries, so the likes of tourism. So we worked with Quilca Boardwalk. It was a very different brief actually, because it was a conservation project. So they're trying to conserve the bogland.
That's the Stairway to Heaven.
Stairway to Heaven, yeah. I'm not sure if you've ever done it, have you?
I haven't, no, but it's definitely on the old bucket list.
Yeah. So what we were trying to do was filter people in the right way. And what I mean by that is to encourage people to book car parking spaces. So we did campaign activation around that. So we developed video material, we developed social channels and messages, we developed a new website, and all we were trying to do there was to drive people to the website to book a car parking space, which meant that we could control the traffic on the boardwalk. Because what was happening is, particularly during COVID, there were just hundreds and thousands of people landing at random times throughout the day, and it was causing a lot of pressure on the bogland. And the whole reason why that boardwalk was created was for that conservation.
It was unsustainable.
And then equally in construction, for example, we're working with a large construction firm at the moment who've just been bought or heavily got a lot of investment from a global company, and they decided it was time to revamp their brand. So we've just done an 18-month project with them to completely reimagine and re-envisage the brand and roll it out across absolutely everything. So
I find that so interesting.
Yeah.
I'd love to ask you just one more question about that.
Yeah.
You know, how do you reimagine a brand or come up with a new brand? You know, what is the process?
It's lengthy, but it's worth the time. And a lot of just what we do is we just sit and talk to people, and that could be anybody from internal teams, so senior leadership teams, right down to sort of junior staff. We might do surveys, we will analyse data, so we'll take a lot of insight from, say for example, what searches are people doing on Google, what's happening on the website, what is the most heavily sort of viewed content on their websites. So we really get a picture of who the brand is and who their customers are and their target audience. So we do what we would sort of call a situational analysis, a lot of research and background, and then we would present the findings to the client. And if they're happy with that approach, we then move on to conceptual designs and visual identity, and we would create the identity from that. So we would never just start out a project by creating a lovely identity for somebody and you know, where does that come from? You really need to get to grips with who the brand is, and then we take that right through to designing concepts and key messages. And the key messages bit is actually the most sort of interesting part of it, I feel, is how do you sum up a company or a brand in one line?
Yeah,
it's extremely difficult. Yeah, and their values and their mission and vision, and it's the most fascinating work because you really sit in a room with even company owners and you say, like, who are you? What do you want to achieve? Where do you see your future? And sometimes they struggle.
Well, yeah,
you know,
it's a big question. It's like that Simon Sinek, isn't it? Why do you get out of bed in the morning and why should anyone care? I love that. It's a way to sort of go,
Exactly, yeah. And what is the purpose of what they're doing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's maybe fine at the start of it, you know, when you're building a business, when people don't really have an awful lot of money and they just come up with a name and then they run with it. But is it always, I mean, why do people rebrand? I would have always thought only if you had some negative publicity would you need to. But, you know, fortune goes into rebranding.
Oh, it really does.
And is it needed to?
Well, like take, for example, the construction client I just spoke about. And that's such a good question because a lot of the time it is down to investment and money and can we spend this money? Is it worth it? But here's a couple of examples. So why they rebranded was because they've just got investment from a global company and they have a global vision, but their brand was quite stale and it's Irish owned and it's, you know, they're historically, you know, just work across Ireland. So it looks like a dated brand, if you know what I mean. They're also trying to attract females into the business. And it was quite a masculine brand, even the font and the bold and the colour scheme and everything. But also it wasn't very modern. And if you're trying to recruit young people into the business as well, so there's 3 reasons already.
Alrighty,
yeah, you know,
you've convinced me.
No,
forget I even asked that question. I now understand.
Yeah.
Thanks. So you're making a real difference on the ground with businesses. You must feel very proud of what you're able to achieve.
Yeah, so I think that to take a step back, the reason I set up Mitso in the first place was because I was in the room when I had agencies coming in through the door pitching for work. So I was given a budget and said, Maeve, you need to go now. And it was actually a campaign that I was running for what to do in a power cut and what numbered phone. So random. But I had to recruit agencies, you know, do the research, get them into the room and pitch for the work. And I absolutely fell in love with that process in terms of like, where does the creative concept come out of? How do you get somebody to remember a phone number when they're in the middle of a power cut? How do you get people to, you know, remember what to do? Where are those people going to see that message? So how do you then plan out the media? Is it going to be on a bus? Is it going to be radio, TV, digital. If you've only got a limited budget to spend, how do you understand where that needs to spend?
Who was this client? Can you tell us?
It was actually in-house when I was in the electricity company in England.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I had to select the agency then that would take that on and do that piece of work. So I was the in-house. And I love that as well, being in-house and sort of collaborating with them. So that's where I learnt.
And did you see that some agencies really were brilliantly creative and others not so?
Yeah, some of them came in and really understood the brief but took the time to do that, and others no, and it was a flop, and you're sitting in the room with them and you're thinking, oh God, this is really embarrassing.
So that was great training for you.
It was brilliant. Yeah,
you knew when you were going to pitch that you absolutely did your homework first of all.
And that area of transformation then is not, just give us your money and we'll create a website for you, or we'll handle your social media. We had another client recently who brought us in to do social, and we uncovered that, they were putting a lot of time and resource into organic social without any paid spend behind it. And I think it was driving like 0.2% of the traffic to their website. And we were like, look guys, what are you doing? You're not even using email. Like, email could be really lucrative for you. To now we manage social slightly, and now they're making a 35 times return on an investment in email. Oh my
goodness, so, right, even there.
So even things like that where you really uncover, and they're delighted.
How do you stand out though from your competitors?
So there's a couple of things there. I think up until a couple of weeks ago I would have said we're female led, but we've a new guy joined the team.
Good.
So it's actually brilliant to have him and have him in the mix. But
changes the dynamic, or
it does,
not?
Yeah. No, it's brilliant, and he brings fresh perspective and new ways of working, I think, as well, which is, it was always a good thing. We won Digital DNA e-commerce project of the year last year, and a couple of people in the room commented to us, it's brilliant to see 4 ladies up on the stage, winning.
Absolutely.
But I think that area of transformation is where we stand out. It's something I've maybe struggled with for a couple of years, is where does our specialty lie? And do we need to be just specialists in one area, or is it okay to be, delivering a number of different services? So what I've tried to do is have specialties. So we have a designer, we have a web developer, we have a brand comms, we have a digital marketing manager. So we have specialties in each of those areas. And
you can be the best in each of those areas.
Exactly. And it means that we can give that holistic approach as well. So I think that's where we stand out. And then the final thing, obviously, is our location. So I think it's attractive to people both sides of the border that we're like just an hour down the road to Belfast and Newry, or to Belfast and Dublin, and that has been a big competitive advantage for us in the south in particular as well.
And the cross border, I mentioned that in the introduction. Are you seeing? Here's a controversial question. Are you seeing more of an all-island approach, or is it still very different because you've got, especially when it comes to advertising or whatever, or clients, or are you seeing more companies having that all-island reach?
Yeah, I do actually. I think even when you look at like the area of recruitment, so we know now that people are really struggling to recruit people, and I think ever since maybe Brexit and all the talk about a United Ireland and everything, people are realising how small the island actually is. And, that it's really easy to do Belfast or business both sides of the border. I suppose we're in a unique position where we're placed in that it's no bother for us to drive down to Dublin or Belfast. Whereas I know that, if you're far north, far south, that maybe doesn't exist. But I think after COVID as well, the revolution of digital and the fact that you can be anywhere dealing with anybody is also a massive benefit. But that all island approach, I think, definitely for bigger businesses and bigger sort of projects and brands will only continue to be stronger.
And is the work the same, the process, the output, all of that, or do you find like feels like very different countries doing things differently?
Yeah, like we had a client, actually a UK-based client, approached us a couple of years ago to manage some of their comms, and they had an agency actually in England doing it at the time, and the reason that they wanted a local agency is because they were doing things really random and using like language that you just would not use in the north versus the south. Yeah. So I think there'll always be those quirks.
Yes.
But I think you just have to design around that and to communicate in maybe a slightly different way.
Yes. Well, we definitely communicate differently.
Yeah.
Sometimes. Bermuda. I mentioned the name Bermuda in the title. So you've clients in the UK, Ireland and Bermuda. Tell us more, please.
A random one I know, but my brother lives in Bermuda. So
it's all about who you know and the connections,
yeah. But he was there for a good number of years before.
Is this the same one with the dancer?
Yes. And he was there for about 6 or 7 years before he even realised that I actually did what I do, I think. And he was like, You do a bit of that brand and marketing, don't you? I think my friend's setting up an IT consultancy out here, and he needs a bit of help. So he had an established brand, as in he had done his logo design and identity, but he had no website, no social media management, nobody doing PR. It's quite a small island. So, I mean, there is only one sort of publication out there, the Royal Gazette. But we did help him to launch the brand into the market. We did a campaign with him, and we still now to this day, we developed his website, and we still now to this day manage his campaigns and his social media. Now that then grew into a couple other clients, and then Invest and I did get some support with them to do a market research trip out there last year, and I was actually heavily pregnant at the time, and I did like 9 meetings in 2 days. I was exhausted, but it's a fantastic place, a beautiful island. And lots of opportunity out there, so we're hoping to grow out there as well.
And hoping to go back there again.
Yes,
you can enjoy it a little more.
Yeah.
You've achieved so much. What do you see as being next for you?
I think we've only scratched the surface in terms of our capabilities, and there's a lot of business out there, and I think untapped potential, I suppose, is how I describe it. Our main aim really is the brands and the companies that we work with. I want to continue doing brilliant work, and that's all I get up for in the morning. And as long as I put my head in the pillow every night and say we did wonderful work for our clients, and I'd like to also grow our export as well.
So what do you like to do in your free time? Because I'm sure you've got loads of it, Maeve.
No,
none.
I don't have much. I think exercise is really important. So not because of like how you look, and it's more for your mind. I think I get up sort of a couple of mornings a week and do a boot camp with a PT called Darlene McLean, and she's local here. And her
so what time do you
fantastic.
get up? What do you do that?
6:30 this morning there, yeah. So It's not too bad.
Good woman.
But I try to do that. I'm obviously used to exercise. I'm just joining a running club tonight. Actually, I love running. I love music, podcasts, watching TV, spending time with my husband when we get it. Going for dinner, but most of all, I just love being with the kids.
Mm-hmm. 3 beautiful little children. You mentioned at the start the importance and the advice that you'd give to others around work-life balance and the importance of rest. I'd love to talk to you just a little bit more about that. Obviously, you're at a very busy stage when you've got lots of little ones running around, but do you think you're nearly getting there with the balance, or is there anything that you feel that you want to talk to me about?
I think there's just a lot of pressure on women and men these days. I think you have to look a certain way, you have to be successful, you have to be like, we're obsessed with success, I think, in careers, and a lot of that's good, a lot of that is brilliant, but it puts a lot of pressure on people. I think social media as well, and the advent of, comparison is the thief of joy as well. I truly believe that if you constantly compare yourself to other people, then you're not really living your own life.
Yeah.
So I think if you just sort of, what I find anyway, is just to live your own life and to live it in the way and be a mum in the way that you can be a mum. Like I went back to work with my first 2 kids after 6 weeks. I went back to work with my third there after 3 months because I had a team. And I'm incredibly lucky to be a mum. I totally, appreciate that, and I'm so lucky, but it does come with its challenges. And I have over the years now realised that even though I'm running my own business, I think a woman in any position now has that, that there are certain pressures that you have to just manage things as best as you possibly can. And
then there's days you just want to run to the hills and still cry.
Yeah.
But we can't, we can't have it all. I think that's completely, unachievable. And, I'm an older working mum now. My children have flown the nest, and they are only small for such a short time, but it is at that time that you're maybe building a business or working really hard. And there's no right formula at all.
There really isn't. And I think just go easy on I've learned to go easier on myself. And my husband's been great, and my mum, for that. To just sort of say, Maeve, you're doing great. Just stop putting pressure on yourself.
Yes, I also heard that, eliminate choice. Stop looking at everything and, as you say, comparing all the time. Or what am I going to watch on Netflix tonight? There's just too much. It'd be much better to write a list in advance and say, we'll start with that. And if I stay awake, we'll maybe watch the next one afterwards. And
we live actually, we live on a bit of a farm. My husband's a bit of a part-time farmer, but I have learned to sort of relish in nature as well. I know that sounds a bit cringe, but to just get out of the house, just be in the wellies and get into the field and the muck and
the
just
fresh
enjoy
air.
the fresh air with the kids and just leave everything. And honestly, you come back feeling so refreshed.
And the work's always just going to be there. But
exactly.
We definitely need to reclaim our life as well. And definitely. I think COVID taught us a lot about that. Maeve, it's been so lovely to talk to you. I asked the same final question of everyone in the podcast studio, and it's this. The purpose of this podcast is to inspire existing business owners and ambitious entrepreneurs to grow their business by offering insight into the success of businesses such as Mitso. So, what advice would you give to people who may have a business idea but have no idea where to begin or are unsure as to whether that risk is worth taking?
The first thing I would say is the risk is not worth taking unless you have passion. So you have to be passionate about what you're doing and you have to love it. If you don't love it, then it'll become very difficult. Secondly, I would say that you can always go back. So, in those really early days and discussions when I had a lot of fear about what I was doing and was I doing the right thing, we always sort of said and agreed, myself and my husband, we can always go back to full-time work. There's nothing that awful that will happen that you can't just say, do you know what? I tried that. It didn't work out. I'm going to go back to full-time employment. And over the years when I've had the kids and things like that, and, I'm always like, oh my God, am I doing the right thing? Like, we'd often joke, well, you're too late to go back now and get maternity. You wouldn't be getting maternity leave anyway. Yeah. So I would always say that. But I think there are fantastic avenues out there for support. There's the likes of the Go For It programme, there's Invest in I. I've been supported fantastically through programmes like that. There's also grants that you can get for, we got a grant there for equipment and things to help us grow the business with whatever we needed from DERA there. So there is always support out there. I would the most important advice I would give to people is to build your network.
Yeah.
So your network is so important, and to treat every single person you meet with respect, no matter what level they're at and who they are, because that is how you grow your business. And
absolutely, no man or woman is an island, and together we're stronger. All of those cliches, but they're actually true.
Very much so, yeah.
So reach out, and yes, I love the respect one as well. Maeve, it's been so lovely to have you here as a guest on the Public Eye podcast. I hope you've enjoyed listening to Maeve today. I'll be back very soon with another fantastic episode of the Public Eye. This podcast was recorded in Granite Podcast Studio. Interested in starting up your own podcast but don't know how? Granite Podcast Studio can help. Record your podcast in our state-of-the-art studio, which is based in the heart of Newry City. Our studio has cutting-edge and user-friendly technology and can seat up to 4 people. We also provide an editing service, where our team using your guidance and editing notes to provide you with a flawless finished product, leaving your listeners wanting more. For more information on how you can get started, visit www.granitepodcaststudio.com.